and thank you for joining us for our session titled Trending Issue: Meaningful Research Includes Patients at the Table. My name is Suzanne Ruff, and I'm pleased to introduce this panel session. Professionally, I've been a freelance writer for the Charlotte Observer, and I'm the author of the nonfiction book, The Reluctant Donor. I am a member of the AAKP National Board of Directors, serving as the association's treasurer. I am also a living kidney donor. In my family, over 20 loved ones have battled or are battling a genetic disease called polycystic kidney and liver disease. The disease has claimed the lives of 11 family members, including my mother and a few short months ago, one of my sisters. I am the only sibling who did not inherit kidney disease. People ask me if I feel guilty about that, but I had nothing to do with my genetic makeup. But I do feel a great responsibility, which is why I became involved with AAKP, as did my father 40 years ago. I am obnoxiously passionate about kidneys and supporting families facing rare or genetic conditions which cause kidney failure. I am a staunch advocate for organ donation and living donation for at this point in time, and hope for artificial kidneys in the near future. I often say, when a person has kidney disease, the family has kidney disease. As a family member and living donor, I have had the great opportunity to represent AAKP on various research projects, including being a co-investigator on the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute's project, putting patients at the center of kidney care transitions, also known as Prepare Now. Our work on this project was from 2015 to 2020, and it was an honor to know and work with the patients and other family members like myself. I've also been a key contact for companies supporting AAKP activities, and as a kidney disease subject matter expert on the AAKP Speakers Bureau. More recently, I had the honor of being one of the authors of the article published entitled Engaging Patients and Family Members to Design and Implement Patient-Centered Kidney Disease Research. Over the last 5+ years, AAKP has invested heavily in grassroots and virtual technologies to help patients and their families engage decision makers, researchers, scientists, and other influencers through our Center for Patient Engagement and Advocacy and our Center Patient Research and Education. Through our strategic partnerships with government, academia, and industry, we have been able to connect tens of thousands of new patient voices and their unique patient insights to those responsible for making informed decisions that impact some of the most vulnerable, ill, and underserved populations in the country. AAKP is building our capacities to better organize patients, address inequities, and to make certain patients have an even greater impact on issues related to care choice and innovation. Throughout the speaker presentations, it will demonstrate that AAKP is leading the way in engaging kidney patients, like you listening, across the disease spectrum in meaningful research and introducing you to a number of researchers and professionals who know the true meaning of patient engagement. It is more than a check off the box. It's the ability to put the independent patient voice at the research and policy table where it rightly belongs to drive a far larger and more representative number of patients in efforts that are already shaping the future of kidney disease treatment and public policy. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Claudia Dahlerus, Assistant Research Scientist, University of Michigan, Division of Nephrology and Internal Medicine, Kidney Epidemiology and Cost Center. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Dahlerus to present.
On behalf of my colleagues, I want to thank the AAKP board and AAKP members for inviting me to present on our patient life goals study. This work would not be possible without the support and expertise of my colleagues and our study team, CMS, and the patients that have participated throughout the development process. This slide lists my disclosures. So I am employed by the University of Michigan, and this patient life goal study was supported through contracts with the CMS. Today, I'll start with a little background of the Life Goals Patient Reported Outcome Measure, and then I'll spend some time talking about our patient partners that have been involved in survey development of the Patient Life Goals survey. I'll talk about our field and full validation testing of the Life Goals Patient Reported Outcome Measure, and then I'll end with a few key takeaways. There were several motivations driving the development of the Patient Life Goals Patient Reported Outcome Measure. Through interviews and a 2017 technical expert panel, we heard from patients and providers they were not very satisfied with patient-reported outcome surveys that were in use, such as those asking about satisfaction with care and quality of life. They expressed concerns about the length and burden of existing patient surveys and not being sure how their responses were being used to improve their care and experience. Providers also questioned the actionability of these survey data. This feedback set the basic framework for the 2017 technical expert panel discussion of patient-reported outcomes and potential new areas for exploration for survey development. Another motivation is the generally low satisfaction patients have reported about their kidney replacement modality choice. That is, about 1/3 of people with end-stage kidney disease felt their selected modality was not really their choice, or it was not an informed choice. This dissatisfaction is even higher among people that are on in-center hemodialysis. Many people that we spoke to also reinforced how dialysis treatment presents challenges to doing the normal day-to-day activities and other things that are important, whether the ability to work, going to school, doing hobbies, exercise, leisure activities, or being as independent as one wants to be. Different modalities and other adjustments to treatment may help support them pursue personal goals that are important to them. Together, this set the context for discussion at the 2017 technical expert panel, and then their subsequent recommendation for a new patient-reported outcome survey related to patient aspirational life goals. Patients have been at the table for this work from the beginning. Again, the Patient Life Goals PRO was recommended by the technical expert panel in 2017. One of the things of note about that panel is that half the panel consisted of patients and then the other half dialysis providers. So patients were actively involved in discussion and participants throughout the deliberations. Patients and dialysis providers wanted a patient-reported outcome that could inform kidney treatment discussions in a way that placed life goals as a key part of those. So, for example, discussion of a modality that aligns with patients' goals and aspirations, and also emphasizing the importance of dialysis to live versus living to dialyze. In the words of one of the panel members, putting dialysis treatment in service to supporting patient life goals where treatment must be in service to what patients want. As a result, the TEP recommendation led to the development of draft items for the Patient Life Goals survey. Patients continued their participation in our subsequent focus groups and additional testing of the survey over the last 4 years. So on the next few slides, I'm going to share some of the feedback that we got from our patient participants on the focus groups as well as through cognitive interview testing. First off, I want to just give an overview of the Life Goals survey itself and the types of questions that are included. Life goals are personal goals that you think are important to achieve. This may include the ability to work, go to school, be independent, spend time with family, or travel, or other things that are important to do. Life goals are defined by each individual. In developing the survey, we respected what we heard from patients. The patient life goal survey is short. It's a total of 8 items in the final version. It asks the respondent to list their life goals, whether their dialysis facility care team talks with them about life goals, and then who on their care team talks with them about life goals. The objective of the survey is to encourage the care team to ask their patients about life goals so that treatment, such as modality type, including transplant, as well as dialysis schedule, can be best tailored to help the person meet their life goals. Most of the feedback from the patient focus group related to wording and plain language understanding of survey items. For example, making it accessible to people at different reading levels. One of the main comments from patients as well as providers was to simplify wording and define terms. For example, define dialysis care team, which we did on the final survey. They also suggested avoiding using technical terms and to use active voice in wording of questions. Participants also emphasized the importance of making the administration of the survey anonymous so that the dialysis facility care team does not know how individual patients responded. As a result of this feedback from the focus groups, we made several revisions and further refinements to the survey before moving on to cognitive interview testing. In 2019, we did cognitive interviews with 13 patients and 10 dialysis providers. And the survey that we used at the time had 9 items, and we tested all of these again for wording and plain language understanding. One important thing that we want to highlight is in recruiting patients to participate in the cognitive interviews, we received over 60 patient volunteers for the cognitive interviews. And this was a result of support and recruitment efforts by patient organizations like AAKP and the NKF and others. We received strong support from patients for the question content, so the wording of questions, as well as the concepts presented in the survey, as well as the brevity of the survey. The next slide provides some specific examples of what we heard from patients in the individual cognitive interviews. Feedback from patients mainly related to wording in the introduction, the list of life goals, and the 6 core survey items. For example, several participants felt the term dialysis patient was potentially off-putting because it suggests dialysis defines someone's whole identity. They suggested using a person on dialysis to reinforce the autonomy of the individual person as separate from their dialysis treatment. Other feedback that we got was on the set of items asking about whether the care team talks with them about their life goals. The patient participants said this should be reworded to allow participants to respond based on their interaction with an individual member of their care team or some or all members of their care team. So, for example, in some cases, it's the social worker or the patient care technician that may be the one who talks with the patients most about life goals. Several suggested adding patient care technician to the list of care team members as well. And this list originally included the kidney doctor, nurse, social worker, and dietitian. In other words, the formal care team as defined by regulation in CMS's conditions for coverage of dialysis facilities. Finally, a few participants suggested adding family members to the list of care team members because they consider them part of their care team. And much like what we heard from the focus groups, patients supported anonymous administration of the survey. This is because trust of facility staff can be an issue for many dialysis patients. Some felt that patients would not be candid completing the questions asking whether care team members talk with them about life goals because a negative response could invite a bad or uncomfortable dynamic with their care team members. So I'm going to talk a little bit about data from our field and full validation testing. I'll begin with just briefly describing the scope of field testing and what's involved in full validation testing. The purpose of field testing is to ensure the individual survey items are suitable for the survey, namely that they are accurately capturing the main concept about life goals and contribute to measuring to what degree the dialysis facility care team is talking about a person's life goals as part of treatment planning. Full validation testing is then the next stage of patient-reported outcome measure testing. The way we are doing this for this survey is by asking participants to complete an initial survey and then 2 follow-up surveys at 3 and 6 months. This is an important step and gives us valuable information to make sure that over time we can observe general stability in people's scores as well as changes in responses where expected due to, for example, a change in their health status or a notable life event like divorce, marriage, or death of a spouse or family member. In other words, we want to observe some change over time when expected, but we also want to see that responses are pretty stable, absent a major change in someone's health or life circumstances, whether they're positive or negative changes. In addition, we want to see how well the survey is associated with other patient-reported outcomes, where we expect life goals to be related to other concepts like quality of life. So in order to do this, we also ask people to fill out a few other short PRO surveys as part of our validation testing. So I'll start by sharing some highlights from our field testing of the Life Goals survey. The survey was field tested in June 2020, and we collected data through December 2020. The survey was available online, or participants could take it over the telephone with myself or another member of the study team, or they could request a paper survey and mail it back to us. We achieved our targeted number of completed surveys, which was to have at least 500, if not more. This is important because we needed at least 500 for the analyses that we needed to do on the questions. AAKP, NKF, and other patient organizations, as well as several dialysis providers, were instrumental in supporting recruitment efforts and our data collection success. For example, they marketed the survey to their members via email and social media. I'll highlight some of the results from our field testing. We completed preliminary and reliability validity analyses in January of 2021, so earlier this year. We had a total of 519 participants that had completed valid surveys that we used for testing. Well over a majority of these were completed through the online portal, about 481, and then the rest were completed either by paper or telephone. The average age of people who took the survey was about 61 years of age. Little over 9% of participants reported their ethnicity as Hispanic. 18% of participants were Black or African American, and 70% of participants were white. 48% of respondents were female, and 42% reported having a college degree or higher. The average time to complete the survey from start to finish was 2.5 minutes. The analyses that we did on the question items showed very strong properties of the core survey items, and this is really what we wanted to see. We found preliminary reliability and validity supported. There was very good internal consistency among each of the survey items, and known groups validity was supported, meaning that we expected individuals on home dialysis would have more positive responses or better scores compared to individuals on in-center dialysis, and this is what we found in our analysis. Based on the testing, the final patient life goals survey includes 2 facility-based scores and 1 individual-based score. The first score tells us how well a facility is doing in discussing life goals with patients. This is the main quality assessment. For example, facility scores between 41 and 59 are close to the average score, and a facility scoring in this range is performing similar on average to many of its peers. But if a facility receives a score on the measure of, say, a 30, then that facility is not doing as good a job talking about life goals with their patients and are worse than most of their peer facilities. The next facility score reports the percentage of patients that responded that at least one treatment team member discusses life goals with them. We want this percentage to be higher versus than lower. And the third score is just an individual level score that is the list of life goals of the patient. This is the only individual patient response the facility will receive directly so that they can use the list of life goals to facilitate discussions between the patient and their treatment team. The facility will not receive responses to any of the other survey items. Right now, we're in the stage of collecting multiple rounds of data for full validation testing, including longitudinal testing. This includes the initial life goals survey, as well as a few other surveys to validate the life goals measure. We started collecting data in April of this year and will continue collecting data through November 2021. We are collecting a baseline survey and then 2 follow-up administrations at 3-month intervals in order to support longitudinal testing. Again, AAKP and other patient organizations have been very supportive in ongoing recruitment for participants to take the surveys and will help ensure the data collection target that we need for this survey, which is about 300 to 600 completed surveys. And our current status as of August 30th was 423 completed baseline surveys so far. So we're really excited that we've at least exceeded well over 300 and anticipate receiving more surveys over the next few weeks. Our next steps are to complete data collection and then to conduct additional testing in early 2021. And then the patient life goals measure will be ready to submit to CMS by September of 2022. I'm going to conclude by highlighting some key takeaways that highlight the central role of patient research participation from the beginning of the patient life goals study. First off, engaging patients early in measure development is important to make sure that we're capturing concepts and outcomes that are important to them. In this work, patients have been at the table from the beginning, whether through individual interviews, the 2017 technical expert panel, focus groups and cognitive interview testing, and then the pilot and longitudinal testing that we've been doing over the last year. The success of development and testing of the patient life goals survey is attributed to patients' involvement in this effort. They provided the concept as well as feedback on specific survey content. They've supported recruitment and longitudinal testing of the survey. Their involvement is ensuring that the survey is capturing what is important to patients and will give information to their dialysis care providers to help best align treatment to patient life goals. A related takeaway is the importance of establishing and maintaining relationships with patient organizations. In our work, we engaged the major national kidney patient organizations, AAKP and NKF, and others early on. The organizations have supported us by disseminating information about measure development expert panels, specifically including the patient-reported outcome work, and they've encouraged their members to participate on those panels as well as throughout other stages of measure development. This includes their participation in the focus groups and cognitive interviews for the patient life goals measure. Their recruitment support and participation in the current longitudinal testing of the patient life goals survey will again ensure the success that we're able to achieve in collecting the data to appropriately test the measure. I've highlighted some of the many ways patients have been involved in this project, which has been crucial to the ongoing development of the patient life goals measure. I want to thank our patient and provider partners, CMS, Dr. Joseph Masana, Dr. Noelle Carlozzi, Katrina Price, Dr. Michael Callan, Dr. Richard Hirth, Jen Miner, Wei Zhang, and our entire patient life goals study team.
Thank you, Dr. Dahlerus, for that excellent presentation. AAKP is proud to be a partner in your patient life goals research project.